You think the people of Ontario are that dumb? Like, I'm gonna call you out and get one of those cans. I'm gonna rip that label off and encourage people to buy Made in Ontario, Made in Canada soup.
Doug Ford in action. He's declared war on Trump, Elon Musk, and now Campbell Soup. A true leader.
CommonSenseLoonie, that's my tune, bringing truth to the red and white moon.
Personally, I am a man.
Welcome back, all you wonderful people. It's Rex again with another episode of CommonSenseLoonie. This is the place to get stories that aren't heavily covered with a little common sense opinion and debate. We've got a smorgasbord of stories for you today, from Air Canada and Canada Post strikes to trade wars to a funny feel-good baseball story. And don't forget, if you like this and you want to see more, remember to hit that subscribe and like and click on that little bell. All right, the stories for today. They're here with a side of opinion, a dash of wit, and a whole lot of common sense. Let's get ready to rumble. Our first story was actually sent to me by one of our most loyal viewers, No Pain Gain. He's been really active here, and I can't thank him and all of you enough for your support. This one comes to us from Global News, and I want to start this off by just saying it's a topic I usually avoid, because nothing good ever comes from it. But I did find a few things interesting about it.
The banner was hanging right here above the Canadian flag outside of the BC legislature. Security at the legislature, along with Victoria Police, are now investigating. What the legislature does know is this is being what's called an external breach. Let me read to you a very short statement provided by the clerk's office here at the legislature. An external security breach took place overnight, August 13th into the 14th, at the Parliament buildings. The matter is being taken very seriously, and a full investigation is underway.
So here we go again, another Palestinian protest act. Someone has hung a banner on BC's Parliament building, which you'll see in a second, that says Free Palestine, Economic Sanctions. Economic sanctions obviously refers to placing sanctions on Israel, which isn't likely to happen. The conflict there is extremely saddening and very complicated. But I find a lot of these protests extremely confusing, being organized by people with very little knowledge of what's actually going on or the history behind it. Anyways, let's get back to the story.
This means the individual who hung the banner outside of the legislature did not do so by going through the legislative property, rather scaled the outside of the building. No one has taken responsibility for this act, although we do believe it is connected with the ongoing protest around the conflict between Palestine and Israel.
Pardon my French, but no shit, Sherlock. Great investigation you got going there. I just want to play a little bit more because there's a few more things to point out.
It also comes at a time where there have been repeated protests here at the legislature. There are events that take place every Saturday.
No pride in apartheid. Actually, there is a P-R-I-D and E in apartheid. Maybe not the most thought out protest sign. There's another one I want to point out.
Right here on the grounds. It also follows.
Now, I'm not going to argue about whether or not there's a queer community in Palestine. I'm just going to mention one name, Ahmad Abu Murkia, a gay Palestinian who was seeking asylum in Israel due to fear for his life from even members of his own family. His body was found beheaded in October 2022. It completely baffles me how no one was protesting that event, which was a year prior to the conflict with Israel. Anyways, they're going to investigate this whole sign thing. I don't really care that much about the actual act, as it's just a sign and no one got hurt. But I'll be shocked if they actually catch anyone. Let's move on. Strikes, strikes, strikes. Let's get into strikes, potential strikes, no strikes, whatever's going on with Canada Post and Air Canada. The reason I've lumped these two together is because I find they're quite intertwined. Let's start with Air Canada. So, very quick summary. We got the Air Canada strike by over 10,000 flight attendants. We have a pay dispute. What was this dispute? Air Canada and CUPE, the union, couldn't agree on a new contract, with the union rejecting a 38% pay increase over 4 years, citing insufficient raises and unpaid work hours. They've been saying that flight crews are not being paid unless the plane is actually moving. So there's been a lot of extra work that hasn't been paid for. Now, because of this, CUPE issued a 72-hour strike notice, signaling intent to walk out. Air Canada responded with a lockout notice, which means they're ready to suspend operations and let the strike proceed. So this has been escalating and escalating. Starting August 14th, Air Canada canceled flights in anticipation for the strike, disrupting travel for thousands. And then this.
This dispute will not be resolved quickly enough. And the impact of the work stoppage at Air Canada that began early this morning is already being felt by travelers. This is causing significant harm and has negative impacts on Canadians and the Canadian economy. It impedes the movement of passengers and critical cargo, such as pharmaceuticals, and it strands thousands of Canadians abroad, making it extremely costly and sometimes impossible to book new flights. Canadians have already sacrificed a lot in this uncertain economy, and this labor disruption is adding to their worries and financial burdens. As Minister of Labour, I have exercised my authorities under Section 107 of the Canadian Labour Code to direct the Canada Industrial Relations Board to order the parties to resume and continue their operations and duties in order to secure industrial peace and protect the interests of Canada, Canadians, and the economy.
So basically, Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu is ordering both parties to resume operations and enter binding arbitration to resolve this dispute. This was done under Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code to maintain industrial peace and protect the economy. To be honest with you, I can't think of a time in the last 10 years our government has done anything to protect the economy. Protect the environment, sure. Economy? Not so much. Anyways, so this halts the strike. But still, it may take 5 to 10 days for Air Canada to resume normal operations. Passengers have faced significant disruptions, with many struggling to find alternative flights due to the limited capacity during the peak summer travel season. So, what does this have to do with Canada Post? Well, a couple of things. First, Canada Post negotiations have been postponed. They were supposed to happen on August 15th and 18th, but they've been delayed to August 20th. Why? Because the mediators decided Air Canada's strike was more important. No mediators available for Canada Post because of negotiations with Air Canada. Now, the other thing I notice here is that Job Minister Patty Hajdu used Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code to maintain industrial peace and protect the economy for Air Canada, but made no such order for Canada Post. Doesn't this make Canada Post look far less important than Air Canada? I mean, a lot of people feel the Postal Service is bloated and not essential anymore. Doesn't this further illustrate that? And wouldn't you know it, just as I was about to upload this video, there's a huge update to this story. Air Canada flight attendants, as per their union, have refused, that's right, refused to go back to work as ordered by the government.
Rallying outside airports across the country, striking flight attendants, making their case loudly. They were ordered back to work by the federal government, but they are defying that order, calling it unconstitutional. The union's national president making his position on the federal order clear.
Wow. Well, we all know how much the Liberals hate it when you defy their orders. What kind of action are we looking at? So for the government, there's basically 4 possibilities or options. First, they could issue fines. The government could fine CUPE up to $100,000 per day for ignoring the order. They did this in 2018 with Canada Post. Penalties were piled up until they finally complied. Their next option is court action. The feds could go to court for an injunction to force workers back. If defied or not followed, union leaders might face arrests. Ontario teachers in 2022 faced court orders when they ignored a similar mandate. Third option, forced arbitration. Not a very popular option. The government could push forward with binding arbitration, imposing a contract without union input. This is what happened with the rail workers in 2024, ending their strike very quickly. And the last one, which I really don't think is going to happen, is emergency legislation. If the strike drags on, Parliament could pass a law to end it. But here's the thing. They're on break. They're on summer vacation until September. And you know how much they hate coming back to work. So, most likely, which is it going to be? Well, like I said, I don't think it's going to be emergency legislation because they're not coming back. Most likely, I think it's going to be court action. It's fast, it enforces the law, and avoids waiting for Parliament. The government's already leaning on the courts, and CUPE's legal challenge makes this a probable next step. We'll be sure to keep you posted on this one. Things just got real. Okay, let's jump into another story. When someone says the words trade war to a Canadian, what do you think their first reaction is? Of course, it's America and Donald Trump. But we've had a longer and in some ways more damaging trade war with another country for much longer than America. I'm talking about, of course, China. And they're at it again, and we're still jumping up and down screaming at Trump.
China is taking aim at Canadian canola farmers. Beijing's new tariff on exports of raw canola from Canada at a rate of nearly 76% are now in place. Chinese officials accuse Canada of dumping cheap canola into their market. However, it is widely believed this is in retaliation over Canada's 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles.
Now we're calling on the federal government to take immediate action to help canola growers during this unprecedented situation. The Chinese government has clearly launched the tariffs at this time of year to cause maximum impact and maximum uncertainty.
So we're in the middle of two trade wars and our government on vacation. Speaking of American trade dispute, Jasmine Lane had a great segment on her show Over Opinionated. If you haven't checked out her channel, I highly, highly recommend it. It's great. So in my opinion, if one word sums up Canada's response to U.S. tariffs, that word is incompetence. And Ontario Premier Doug Ford is leading the charge. Since Trump slapped tariffs on Canada in late 2024, Ford's bluster and Canada's knee-jerk retaliation have hurt us far more than the U.S., tanking our economy while Canada barely dents theirs. Ford's been a master of self-inflicted wounds. Take his call for dollar tariffs.
We're going to make sure that we inflict as much pain as possible to the American people.
Canada hit U.S. goods with $155 billion in tariffs by April 2025, targeting things like orange juice and appliances. Sounds tough, right? Wrong. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce warns this could tip us into recession, costing Canadians $1,900 each annually. Our exports to the U.S. are 20% of our GDP. America's exports to us, 2%. We're bleeding. They're shrugging. Then there's Ford's boycott fiasco.
And I've sent a direction to the LCBO, these tariffs come, to clear off every bit of U.S. alcohol off the shelves.
Provinces like Ontario and British Columbia yanked U.S. alcohol from shelves to stand up to Trump. Result: Canadian retailers and booze sales took the hit, with higher prices and fewer choices for consumers. The U.S.? They just pivoted to other markets. No problem. And even dumber than that, the Bix Pickle boycott, which we talked about in our last episode, pulling U.S.-made pickles that were using Canadian cucumbers, risking 11 million pounds of our farmers' exports. No dent to the U.S., but Canadian growers face rotting fields. Ford's rhetoric is gasoline on the fire. He threatened a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the U.S.
And the 25% on electricity exports, will that take effect regardless of what happens today? I mean, if he pulls back, so you guys are going to follow through?
We have to follow through until he drops tariffs completely.
Then back down after Trump doubled steel tariffs to 50%.
Already Canada, and I respect very much, as you know, there's a very strong man in Canada who said he was going to charge a surcharge or a tariff on electricity coming into our country. He has called and he said he's not going to do that. Okay, he's not going to do that. And it would have been a very bad thing if he did, and he's not going to do that, so I respect that.
He called Trump the most disliked politician in Canada on CNN, souring negotiations with no gain.
He's probably the most disliked politician in the world in Canada.
U.S. Ambassador Pete Hofstra, in the Jasmine Lane interview, called out Canada's approach, pointing out that Canada was tariffing CUSMA-compliant goods like steel and apparel, undermining the trade agreement Ford claims to protect. And those Buy Canadian policies Ford pushed? This meant Ontario would prioritize local suppliers, jacking up costs and limiting competition. But Ford's not alone. Prime Minister Mark Carney's fight with force bravado and BC's EV boycotts and soapbox speeches haven't helped. This public spatting chills cross-border investment in tourism, hurting our border towns more than the U.S. Meanwhile, smart countries like the UK and Japan cut deals with Trump, trading concessions for tariff relief. Canada, we're posturing, losing leverage, and ignoring our ballooning trade mess with China, as we just looked at. Canada needs to play smarter. Negotiate on drugs and borders, tweak CUSMA terms, and diversify trade. Otherwise, we'll keep losing while the U.S. marches on. Okay, our last story for today is light, and it's about Canada's only Major League Baseball team, none other than the Toronto Blue Jays. And might I add, the Toronto Blue Jays are having a fantastic season this year. Blue Jays catcher Alejandro Kirk reached a personal milestone, his first ever stolen base. Now, we don't usually celebrate for one stolen base, but you see, this was really special for Kirk. It was his 532nd career game. That's 5 years with the Blue Jays and not one stolen base until now. Kirk's not exactly known for his speed, but he shocked the Rangers in the 8th. He took off as Miles Straw struck out, and Rangers catcher Kyle Higashioka didn't even bother throwing. Kirk slid into second safe, and the Rogers Center crowd lost it. Standing ovations, pure pandemonium. But wait, it gets better. Kirk's teammate Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had the perfect gift. He handed Kirk the literal base to keep as a trophy. Talk about a moment to remember. All right, that's it for today, all you wonderful people. Every single one of you is really appreciated by me and our fellow loonies. I don't care if you agree or disagree with my opinions and takes. I really don't mind. You're always welcome to comment below, and hope to see you in our next one. So, stay strong, stay speedy, and, of course, stay loony.
I'm here to cut through the haze, no disguise. Gonna open your eyes to politicians' lies. Canada's great, but led by wackos, it's true. Time for no nonsense, me and you. I'm the Common Sense Looney, hear my call. Ditch bingo night games, we'll fix it all. Common Sense Looney, that's my tune. Bringing truth to the red and white moon.
Personally, I am a man.